Hello, all you slutty gear freaks out there on Gearslutz. I'm glad to be here. I know I don't visit you often, but here I am, and I'm happy to be here. Anyway, so we're talking about my first and only plugin so far. I'm just kind of jumped into the plugin pool, as you might say, and here it is. It's called Clearmountain's Domain. It's got a whole bunch of things in there. The whole idea of it is I don't mix in the box, so I mix on an analog desk. I have a big SSL, and I use a lot of delays and reverbs, EQs, as a lot of people do, but I use them in I guess a unique way. I mean, I never thought it was that unique until my assistant a couple of years ago, Sergio Ruelas, said, I've tried to do what you do in the box, and it's pretty much impossible. Well, that's interesting. And so we started thinking about doing a plugin for it, and I think of what this is as sort of a domain, why I called it Clearmountain's Domain, or just an environment for the mix. So it's delays that kind of sit in the background, reverbs, and treating them in a certain way, EQing them in certain ways. And what you can do here, the first page, it's got this thing called a visualizer. If I can somehow get it to work, you'd be able to, there you go. And this is just for fun, really. It's there's two delays, there's stereo delays. Anything on the left will shoot off to the kind of the left, anything on the right shoot off to the right. The reverbs looks sort of like a cloud. And that's just something to look at. It's not really important. We could do it, and so we did. And now you have over here you have a blend setting. So if you were using it on an individual track, like say a guitar solo or something, you'd put this somewhere 50% or below probably, so that you would get mainly your guitar coming through, and the effects you'd sweeten this to taste. If you were using it off an aux then, which is usually how I do effects, you would put this on fully wet. All right, now there's got a bunch of presets here. You can select, say, the reverb that was on the Hungry Heart mix I did for Bruce Springsteen, or Let's Dance, the delay, the stereo crazy delay on Let's Dance guitar, or maybe like on a live Rolling Stones track that I might have done, or maybe the sort of Run to You guitar delay or vocal delay on Bryan Adams. I mean, we're going way back. Might be before some of you were born. I don't know, but some of you will know some of these songs. But they're just sort of similar, reminiscent of things I would have done on those channels. Now, the whole idea is that you could start off on one of these presets, but then you can get under the hood. So, and you do that by, there's the little signal diagram over here that shows you the signal flow, but it's also navigation. So that'll take you to there's 4 pages of parameters. So that's the first one. This is like the input page. Now I have de-essers here, and you're kind of, well, why would you de-ess on an effects send? Well, I discovered a long time ago that if you have a long delay in a voice, very often you'll hear the S's from the sibilants coming back on the delay, like 150 milliseconds or maybe 400 milliseconds later, quarter note later, and it gets to be a little bit annoying. And so this way you can kind of get rid of it completely. I usually hit it really hard so that it just eliminates the S altogether. So you can keep you don't have to roll top off on the delay. You can keep it bright, but without that annoying S. And the same for the reverb, so that the reverb doesn't get all cloudy with a bunch of sibilants. Then you can EQ each delay, turn them on here. You can EQ the delay or the reverb. Right? It's just normal little graphic EQs. Then the delay bit, this is the delay page. This is pretty normal. You'll recognize, you can have a quarter note, eighth note, 16th note, dotted, triplet, all that kind of thing. It's pretty normal. You can sync it to your session, of course, or you can type in a specific delay time. And then it's got a bunch of other buttons here that affect how you use it. It's got a spin is like regeneration. If you worked in England a long time, you'd know what that means, because spin is the same as feedback, basically. I thought spin was a cooler word than feedback. Feedback kind of can have a negative connotation. So that's what those do it's a left delay and a right delay. And now you can feed them back into themselves, which without that button pushed, they just feed back into themselves like a normal delay. If you hit spin crossfeed, now they go into the opposite. So the left delay will feed into the input of the right delay, and vice versa. Now say you select the same delay on both sides. Let's say we select a quarter note on both sides. Now if they're both the same, it's going to sound like a mono delay because they're both doing exactly the same. But you can get a little spread if you hit the link offset and you push this up a little bit. Now I've added 10 milliseconds to the left. It automatically subtracted 10 milliseconds from the right. So you still have basically the same time delay, but they're just a little bit off. And then if you cross-feed them, now an interesting thing happens where you'll hear stereo, and then the first repeat will be mono because it's the same thing, and then it goes stereo again. I mean, it's hard to explain what's happening, but when you try, you'll hear it. And then it's got another interesting feature. Okay, if you link the spins, right? You link the spins, and if you have two different delays, let's say a dotted eighth on the right, a quarter note on the left, and now you're spinning them back into themselves, so you don't have the crossfeed selected. Now you'll notice that the right one's going up more than the left one. And so what it's doing is it's compensating so that they decay at the same time, because obviously if they're repeating, the shorter delay is going to decay faster because it's shorter. But that compensates for that, and so they decay at the same rate. It's something that I would do normally. I'd have to really listen to it and add the feedback on the right delay until they're both even. But this just does it for you automatically. And then there's blur, which basically it's like a saturation or a distortion. And that just kind of blurs out the delay, so the delay is coming back doesn't sound just like what's going in. It's a bit distorted. And then you can also add EQ that will kind of blur things more just by, doing something like that. Now the delays are a little bit different. You can get a whole lot of different combinations and different sort of textures by adjusting these different parameters. And then there's reverbs. Well, there's the harmonizer, which each delay has its own harmonizer. And what I do normally is I'll send like a plus 5 cents on one side on a fixed delay. I said like 5 cents and minus 5 cents, just to thicken it up a little bit, like a double track. But it also's got this random mode where it's really just kind of bouncing up and down around the 0 point. And the display is just showing you like the sense how far it's going out. And then there's reverbs. There's 3 main convolution reverb slots. The first one is always a convolution reverb. It's a impulse response of the Apogee Studio, which is like a very warm. It's just an ambience. It's very short. And it's hardly even noticeable when you put it on a voice. Just instead of having something totally dry, it's like a nice sort of a thing. It's some kind of thing that I use quite often. Mixed-disc chambers. I have 2 echo chambers in my studio that are just 2 little rooms. I always like the sound of Motown reverb, and so it's similar to that. It's very short and splashy, and then there's this one, which has a bunch of different, you can choose from a bunch of different reverbs that we've created. All all impulse responses. There's this concrete stairwell, which is this building that we found over in Beverly Hills, marble bathroom, which is actually a suggestion from my wife Betty Bennett, who owns and runs Apogee. We were at a concert, and she went to this theater in Beverly Hills, and she said, "Boy, you should check out the ladies' room in this place. It has this incredible reverb to it." And so we went back a few days later, and they were very graciously let us do an impulse response. It's a great sound. It's very similar to the Chamber 2 chamber at Power Station, which was a bathroom in the basement of the building that I wired up years ago because I wanted to get a unique sound. There was an old 4311 JBL speaker that I stuck in there and a couple of AKG mics. And that was the main reverb I used on a song called Hungry Heart for Bruce Springsteen. It's the main reverb on Start Me Up by the Rolling Stones. And so this sounds really close to that. In fact, I actually think this is a little better because it was a nicer bathroom. It was marble. The other one was just tile. Then the Mixes shower, which is just this shower that we have in our studio. And it was pretty reverberant. I thought, well, what the hell? I'll just get an impulse response. It's kind of wonky sounding, but it could be good for something. But I actually like it. And then the Rosco Chamber is a guy named Rosco who has his own studio, but he's got this beautiful chamber and he let us sample it. It's just a really long. It's more like closer to Chamber 1 at Power Station, which was an enormous stairway. And it's beautiful sounding. And two different types of mics. There were some AKG mics and some warm ribbon mics, so they're completely different character. And then a gated plate, which is really the Rosco Chamber 1 through a pretty severe gate. And it's the kind of effect that we used on the Born in the USA snare drum back in the day, which is also one of the presets. And it's just a very intense reverb that shuts off very abruptly without decaying naturally. And so you can select any of those for the third slot. You can add a pre-delay to the main input. You can send it directly in, the signal directly in, or you can send the output of the delays into there. This particular preset has a bit of the delay going into the stairwell. And then the last one is just a mixer that mixes it all together. It's very, very straightforward. Each one of these is a stereo. The three chamber slots, the delay, and the pitch delay. And that's basically it. That's kind of I've briefly run through all the programs. You just got to try it. It's fun to play with. There's a couple of things that are fun. This thing up here is just this is just for fun. As you can see, each time you click it, it just randomly comes up with different settings. It's kind of fun to go through and put some sound through and to see what it comes up with. I don't know if any of them are usable, but who knows? But anyway, and that's it. But thanks a lot. And thanks for letting me bore you guys. And I'll see you on Gearslutz. I don't know why it's not. It's because I'm miserable with Pro Tools, that's why. And I don't really know how to work it. Or else, and then the other thing is, these are settings for the...
Bob Clearmountain uses this stuff.
Hey Frank, how you
do?
Frank Filippetti just walked by, old friend.